where you're just kind of like this. You have a lot of hobbies or a technology nut. And I know you've been following Bitcoin since it was like it's $600.
Oh yeah.
And it after we talked, it went to 19,000, but we don't have a crystal ball, so I'm sure we all cried ourselves to sleep regarding our investments. But the last time we talked in 2017, Ethereum was at 330, and now it's at 100. And we were kind of led to believe that the longer Ethereum was in development, the more time we gave these decentralized networks, the more valuable our early adopter mentality would pay off. But here we are. The CEO of Ujo Music is gone. Imogen Heap kind of backed away from her initiatives of music on the blockchain. So that really just leaves you and Goldroom, right? I can't think of anyone else.
I feel like it is important to sort of distinguish the sort of price side of it from the actual activity on the blockchain, because like specifically with Ethereum, there's actually still like quite a lot of stuff happening, but it's not related to the price, you know. I mean, like
interest is related to price.
Yeah.
From the general public.
Oh yeah, the general public has totally tuned out. That is for sure. Like they don't care, and that's, I think, maybe a positive thing at the moment.
I think that's positive. Yeah,
because like it. Okay, so like when when we last spoke, I mean, we were like in a period of mania. Like it was insane. Like it went from $10 to like 300 to 1,200 to 1,300 or wherever it topped out. I mean, that was like a kind of an insane period. But like so we had all this interest and like this people, we're gonna change the world, we're gonna do all this stuff, and I don't think the potential has been lost necessarily. But like I think the reality of where the technology is and the amount of research that is still needed, and like the infrastructure level stuff that still needs to happen, I think people just kind of realize that we're still years away from that. So, so I think the price is probably at a much more reasonable level at the moment. But with that said, like I don't like focusing so much on the price, because I feel like it's so at a whim of like so many other things that really, I don't feel like it's an accurate representation of like where the technology is, and or maybe it is, I don't know, but like, but like I look at the space now, like with the DeFi movement, and you know, a lot of the music stuff is sort of, you know, it's sort of halted a little bit, but like there's some interesting projects like Saint Fame, and like a lot of stuff happening with like essentially tokenization, and like I mean, I guess it's a little bit more on the back end, more on the financial side, like the partial ownership of catalogs and like things like that. There is some really interesting stuff happening there. But like in terms of like transitioning the music industry to a blockchain or anything like that, I think we're definitely far out from that.
Yeah, I love that on the linear notes of ego, you still thank Spotify. I mean, it's still important.
Okay, so like the music industry is sort of its own worst enemy. I grew up during the early 2000s with Napster, and like Napster was the reason one of the main reasons why I suddenly had access to music, you know, growing up in Portugal. Like I just didn't have anything. I only had access to like the very major label-y releases, and you know, like even something like Radiohead, you couldn't buy in stores. Like you had to pirate it. Like it was the only way, or you could import it from somewhere else. You have to go to Spain, like to get records, which is insane. You know, people just assume that, you know, people take it for granted now you have access to everything, and that's great. Back in the day, the music industry was like, no, we're going to shut down Napster. You know, it's like, but that's the only way you can get stuff, you know, like it wasn't that like people were unwilling to pay, is that they wanted to have control over it, and they didn't see this coming. That's a roundabout way of saying, like, you know, the music industry has continuously shot themselves in the foot at every step of the way by not embracing new technology, and they're a little bit better now. Taking the financial side of Spotify out of the equation as a service, it's pretty solid.
You know, I see the little green circle with the 3 black lines. I click on it. All I have to do is type in 3 letters RAC, and your whole discography is in front of me. I don't need MetaMask. I don't need all these intermediaries. So I think as until we make it as simple as Spotify, it's going to be an uphill battle. But you mentioned Radiohead and innovation and the separation from the financials, and I'll meet you halfway on that. Did experimenting with the release, making Ego a proof of concept, do you think it tampered with the potential of a more successful debut. Now, I don't have the numbers, and I'm definitely not hinting that Ego wasn't a success. I'm just curious that if, when Radiohead came out with In Rainbows, they came out and experimented with a make your own price model. And whenever you buck a traditional record release, it's iffy. You don't know how it's going to go.
I'm super happy with like how it went. It was kind of funny. I'll have this memory of doing press in Japan, and I was like doing it with like a translator, and it was like a moment. It was kind of a moment out of like Lost in Translation, and it was just kind of really funny to me. And like every journalist was asking about Ethereum, and like trying to explain Ethereum through a translator, like in Japanese, like, it was just like it was a little bit difficult. But my point is that like I was it was a big part of the record in a way, even if like I actually don't know how many we did in sales. It wasn't like amazing. It wasn't like a crazy amount or anything like that. But like it was more of a talking point, and more of like, hey, here's a new thing that we can like talk about and like figure out. Maybe this is viable. But like the idea of selling like a digital product for a fixed amount of ETH or whatever, I don't think that that's like the way of the future. I mean, I didn't really think it was then, unless it's a very niche group of people that actually want to buy MP3s in this, or waves or whatever. Like it's even less so now, and I don't expect it to ever move back to that. Like this idea of like owning digital files. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that would advocate for that, but like I don't think that that's what most people want. It was actually really funny having like lunch with the Spotify people when they were asking me about Ethereum.
Yeah.
And like they were genuinely interested, and they're like, well, what are you doing there? I mean, I don't think they see it as a threat or anything like that. It's just like yet another technology, and something that can sort of help the ecosystem.